Hi everybody, I'm Pia from Stitches and Scraps, and this is lesson 5 of Learn to Crochet. Today we're going to learn how to do a half double crochet stitch. In our previous lessons we made a foundation chain, we worked a couple of rows of single crochet and a couple of rows of double crochet. So now we're going to learn the half double crochet, which is sort of halfway between a double and a single. A half double crochet, well actually if you remember, a single crochet is about 1 stitch tall, right? And a double crochet was about 2 chains, not stitches, 2 chains tall. And then we had the third chain that we used for the top of the stitch. Well, a half double crochet, in all honesty, is about 1.5 chains tall. So just like with the double crochet, there's a couple of different ways to start it. Actually, there's more different ways to start it. Some people start with 2 chains and they do not count that as a stitch. Some people start with 2 chains and they do count that as a stitch. So make sure you're reading your pattern carefully so that your stitch counts don't get messed up as to whether this is supposed to be a stitch or this is not supposed to be a stitch. Because if it's not supposed to be a stitch, you put your first stitch here. If it is supposed to be a stitch, you're going to put your first stitch here. Okay? For our purposes, we're going to do something a little different. We're going to chain 1, because remember, it's 1.5 stitches tall. So chain 1 is fine, chain 2 is fine. We're going to chain 1, and we're not going to count it as a stitch. Okay? So we're going to chain 1, and we're going to put our first stitch right here into this very first stitch. So how do you do a half double? Well, you start it like a double crochet. You yarn over, you put your hook in, pull up a loop, and now you've got your 3 loops on your hook. Okay? To finish this stitch, to finish a double, you would pull through 2 and then you would pull through 2 again, right? Not so for the half double. For the half double, we're going to finish our stitch by pulling through all 3 of these loops at once. So yarn over, pull through all 3. That's it. That is a half double crochet stitch. And you can see it's really easy to see where your loops are. This is the first loop that was on our hook, and that's going to become the top of the stitch. This diagonal line is the yarn over, and this V at the bottom is the loop that we pulled up in our stitch. So it looks just like a single crochet with the addition of this diagonal line from the yarn over. So that is our first half double. Let's do it a little slower. Yarn over, insert your hook into the next stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through all 3 loops, and that's our double crochet, or sorry, that's our half double crochet. Let's do a few more. Yarn over, pull up a loop in the next stitch, yarn over and pull through all 3, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through all 3. Try and do it in one smooth motion because that'll give you the most even stitch, but if you can't, it is okay at first to go 1, 2, 3. But this will give you a much more even tension if you can get that. So I'm going to finish this row until we get to the end. Okay, we've come to the end of the row, and now remember, when we did our last row of double crochet from our previous lesson, we did it by chaining 2 and we're not counting that as a stitch. So this is our chain 2. We're going to ignore that. Our last stitch is right here. So we're going to yarn over, insert our hook into our last stitch and pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through all 3 loops. So now let's count and make sure that we have the right number of stitches. This is our chain 1. It does not count as a stitch. Look for this diagonal line. That tells you where you have a stitch. You've got the V on the bottom and you've got the diagonal line. So that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, and 20, which is how many we wanted. So let's do one more row. Chain 1, turn our work. I always like to chain before I turn. Most people don't. It's up to you. You can chain after also. Yarn over, insert your hook into the first stitch and pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through all 3. Yarn over, insert your hook, pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through all 3. You may notice that just like when we did the single crochet, my grip is changing as I do different parts of the stitch. So I yarn over, my fingers are here, right? Insert my hook, my fingers are still here. The minute I have to do this chain 3, my fingers, not chain 3, pull through 3, my fingers shift to here. And that gives me more support as I'm pulling through. And that's just the motion that's become second nature to me. If I was to try to pull through those 3 with my fingers here, that's a little harder and more floppy when I get to the end because there's not any support under there. So let your fingers do what they're going to do. You may notice yourself doing things that are different from me. Let it happen because that's how you get your own style and your own feels. You've got to do whatever works for you with crochet. Okay, we're at our last stitch here, and remember we made a chain 1 that did not count as a stitch, so we're ignoring this chain 1. This V at the top, that is our last stitch. So yarn over, insert your hook into the last stitch, pull up a loop, pull through all 3 loops. And just like that, we have done 2 rows of half double crochet. Thanks for joining me. And I hope you'll join me next time when we learn how to finish off our work and weave in our ends. If you would like to have a small washcloth completed by the time you're done with that, repeat what we've done here until you have a square. So we've done 2 rows of single crochet, 2 rows of double crochet, 2 rows of half double crochet. So do that whole thing again. Do 2 more rows of single, 2 more rows of double, and 2 more rows of half double, and you will have approximately a square. It might not be quite a square, but it'll be enough to be a small washcloth. So if you'd like to do that before next week's lesson, then you'll have an actual finished project when you're done.